Now it's time for some medical news. The National Institutes of Health published a report on teen smoking. The survey found a growing popularity of electronic cigarettes, or e-cigarettes, among teenagers. Dr. Suzanna Steinbaum joins us for more on this story. She's the director of women's heart health at Lenox Hill Hospital. So good to see you, Dr. Steinbaum.
Good to be here.
Welcome back to Arise America. So let's start with the research. What does the research say about the dangers, or lack thereof, of using e-cigarettes?
Let's start with the fact that people think e-cigarettes are a safe alternative to smoking. And the reality is this is just not the case. E-cigarettes have nicotine. There's multiple different toxins. This is not a safe alternative at all. With nicotine and a teenager inhaling nicotine at questionable amounts, because you don't really know how much you're getting on each inhalation, it's associated with high blood pressure, fast heart rates. There's some studies that show even changes in mental functioning. But I have seen people in emergency rooms really overdosing on nicotine. And it's a horrible thing to see. With teenagers and young kids getting their dose, I am so concerned for their health, certainly in the moment, but going forward as well.
And do we know much about the particular effects on teenagers, the use of these e-cigarettes in terms, because they're still growing,
right.
Their brain is still developing,
right.
You know, they have almost no impulse control at that stage of their life. But do we know particular effects on young people at that stage of development?
The one thing that I can tell you is that there's some question whether or not there's an impairment of brain development, and that's so concerning. The other piece to this is that we're seeing people who really start with e-cigarettes going into then smoking regularly and becoming regular users. And we know what happens then. There is, heart disease and lung disease and peripheral vascular disease. This is not something that we want to encourage our youth to start using. It is not good for them.
Talk to me specifically about the dangers of nicotine. So much focus was on the dangers of cigarettes because of the tar and the other byproducts of literally burning the tobacco leaves, and that's what caused cancer and much of the damage to the respiratory system. What does nicotine do to the body?
Let me say this also. With nicotine, people think that the e-cigarette just has nicotine, and it's not true. There are also those other toxins. So let's not just say that someone's being exposed to nicotine. They are being exposed to everything. But the nicotine is really what can increase that heart rate and really clamp down the blood vessels. This causes high blood pressure. This can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And why aren't these things regulated by the FDA?
Here's the issue. So the American Heart Association this year said, call to action. We need to regulate the e-cigarettes. They're out there being marketed. There are 45 flavors of e-cigarettes. This is marketed towards kids. This is very appealing. They absolutely need to be regulated. It is time. It is time. It is time.
And included in being regulated in the medical community believing that it needs to be regulated. Let's also talk about the behavior of parents, or your advice to parents when they're having conversations with their kids about the do's and don'ts of negative behavior, toxic behaviors. What do you advise that they say?
I have this conversation often because bad behaviors often start at this age. And it's really about communication. If you're going to talk about this particular topic and talk about the e-cigarette, it seems cool, it seems like another device, and the reality is it isn't. And what I think needs to be communicated is this is not safe, this is not good for you. This can actually hurt you and damage your body and your brain, but really encourage communication. And that's the most important thing.
I want to go back to this whole issue of regulating these e-cigarettes.
Yeah.
Why does the FDA decline to regulate them at this point? What's their rationale?
Well, I don't know if they're declining. I think it just hasn't been regulated. And it's time that we do that and put that in place. The regulation becomes about, for each inhalation, how much nicotine are you getting? It's really the vaping community, the people that are selling these products that are really making so much money off of them. I think they're the ones that don't want this regulated.
And perhaps they're lobbying to that degree.
Yeah. I would think so.
Bottom line, there's a lot that we don't know and a lot that we do that should concern us.
I think you're absolutely right. This is one of them that we really have to fight for.
All right, Dr. Suzanna Steinbaum, thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
to talk to you. Before we go, we have this breaking story to tell you. A judge posthumously exonerated a 14-year-old African-American boy who was executed in 1944. An all-white jury deliberated for just 10 minutes and found George Stinney Jr. guilty of beating to death 2 white girls. The judge today stated that Stinney's prosecution was marked by, quote, fundamental constitutional violations of due process. Thank you very much for joining us. That's going to do it for this edition of Arise America. We'll see you tomorrow for another edition. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell. Have a great day.